Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are having a great Monday. Today, we're going to be looking at your big Thanksgiving snowstorm that could be impacting parts of the plains, the Midwest, and then even parts of the Rocky Mountains with some pretty significant snowfall, potentially even a blizzard in some areas over parts of, I would say, southwest Colorado, and then another pocket there from Nebraska to South Dakota and northwest Iowa could definitely be seeing some sort of blizzard, if not sustained for 3 hours, which would be the criteria for a blizzard, maybe for about an hour or two, but definitely a very strong system, and that's why I'm going to be covering it today to make sure that you guys are all prepared for this big travel week and to know what's happening currently in the weather. Well, here's the National Weather Service. You see, pretty quiet over the east. Well, once you get to I would say the east, I would say fifth of the U.S. But then you move a little bit west. A ton of winter weather advisories, all that type of stuff. So let's get right into it. High wind watches over parts of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Iowa. Also, high wind, well, these are all wind advisories, wind warnings, all of this in the brown, stretching anywhere from about Texas to California. This is all wind related advisories, so definitely some strong wind, especially on the backside of this system. Now, over California, the Sierra Mountains, the Sierra Nevada, and the Rocky Mountains, all seeing some winter storm warnings, winter storm watches, winter weather advisories. Your winter weather advisories are in purple. Your winter storm warnings are in pink, and your winter storm watches are in that that medium shade of blue, right here, this shade of blue. And then you have freeze warnings in effect for the valleys of California. So your first freeze of the season coming pretty late here, almost December, but for those areas. Pretty early actually for some areas over the valleys. Usually don't expect it quite this early, but some areas see it a little bit later, but definitely not totally crazy, but you are going to have some cold air on the backside. That's why you're going to see those freeze warnings up in effect for those areas. And then we just have some flood warnings or flash flood watches, high surf warnings, that type of stuff down in southwest California. Now that we're done with the National Weather Service page, very active today. I forgot to talk about this. The main system. I can't believe I forgot to talk about this. Winter storm warnings posted in that pink for anywhere from northern Wisconsin to southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, and then most of Nebraska, southern South Dakota, northern Kansas, and then northern Colorado and southern Wyoming. Then we have winter weather advisories in the purple surrounding that, and winter storm watches around the pinks as well in those blues. And this is a pretty wide area. This is anywhere from about the Great Lakes all the way to the western coast. So a very expansive area of these winter weather alerts. Here's the National Weather Service's forecast as far as snowfall. So here's your little key on the top showing how much each color represents. So you see, we'll start off in the west. You have about a coating to an inch, a couple inches in those blues, so anywhere from about 2 to 8 inches in those blues. And then once you get into the pinks, you're about, or those purples, about that would be like 9 to about 12 inches, 12 to 16 inches in those whites, 16 to about 24 inches in those pinks, and then once you're in the reds, you're about 24 to 28 inches, and in those yellows, oranges, about 28 to 32 plus inches of snowfall. So the Sierra Nevada seeing about around 3 feet of snowfall from this event. Then also continuing up into parts of Oregon and Northern California, and about 2 feet of snowfall. And then once you get into parts of the Central and Northern Rockies, seeing about a foot of snowfall in higher elevations, including for Denver, you're seeing about 11 inches of snowfall from this event. So even some of those lower lying areas seeing some snowfall out of this quite impactful snowfall at that. Boise, Idaho, seeing right around coating to an inch or about 3 inches in some areas. But then once you get into the higher elevations, just north of the city, you could be seeing about a foot to 3 feet of snowfall, especially in those higher elevations. Moving it on to the Midwest and the Central Plains, you're seeing a good swath, about 6 inches, including Minneapolis, Rapid City, Dodge City, all of these areas, Marquette in the UP of Michigan, and Green Bay, seeing about 6 inches. Actually, Green Bay is going to be on the southern cusp of this, about an inch or so of snowfall. Minneapolis seeing about 9 inches of snowfall. Marquette, Michigan seeing maybe a foot of snowfall from the system. So pretty heavy snowfall totals over these areas that are circled or are in those pinks and purples and those dark blues. And this is going to be occurring right when you're getting out the door to go to travel for Thanksgiving or whatnot. All your traveling is going to be done during this snowstorm. So it's going to be very hectic over those areas. Now, here's the GFS model. We're going to look at the GFS and then the European model. So here, starting it off here, so this would be for basically what's happening right now. This is your little system that's going to be turning into an absolute monster. Once it passes over about eastern Colorado into Nebraska, you're going to get some pretty good banding, and that's going to lead to some snowfall on the backside, and that's where Denver is going to get most of their snowfall, especially for like Colorado, western Nebraska, southern Wyoming. That's where you're getting most of your snowfall, on that backside. But then once that system intensifies, most of the snowfall for these areas on the right along on the northwestern side of this storm. So as we continue this, so this would be for Tuesday morning. So tomorrow morning, once you're getting out of the door for work and school, for these time zones, it would be right around 4 a.m., 5 a.m. You're seeing about, I would say, heavy, light to moderate snowfall. It shouldn't cause too much travel. These areas have seen about like 9 snow events, I believe, this entire winter. So definitely not something that you're not used to, something you're very used to, actually. And then that heavier snowfall starts to come in over eastern Nebraska by about Tuesday in the afternoon. Really intensifies over northwest parts of Iowa and into southern Minnesota as you're getting into Wednesday morning, and then getting into northern Wisconsin by about Wednesday in the middle of the day. Now, for your lunchtime, very heavy snowfall still over parts of Wisconsin, and then moving into the UP of Michigan. Now, the GFS model, this would be some pretty good news if you're traveling. You are going to still have a lot of ice and snow on the roads, at least. The GFS model pushes this back a couple days, just one day. So this would be on your Wednesday, not your Thursday. But most people are traveling on Wednesday, and that's what makes this an even bigger deal. Most people don't travel on actual Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving Day. They travel mainly on like Tuesday, Wednesday. So this is going to be pretty hectic, climatic over these areas. As far as travel is concerned, here's your total snowfall. We'll zoom in over the west first, and you're seeing generally around 6 inches in these pinks. So a good area that's receiving about 6 inches. Once you get into those greens, that's about a foot to 2 feet. And then in those blues and grays, that's about 2 to 4 plus feet of snowfall. So some of these mountain ranges seeing about 3 feet of snowfall from this system. Now into the Midwest and north central U.S., including the Great Lakes, you're seeing about 6 inches. Minneapolis, according to the GFS, seeing about 10, 12 inches of snowfall. And then really the jackpot, according to the GFS, is really going to be in this narrow band where you could have the most snowfall. And even some lake effect enhancement. Lake effect snow can still happen even though there is a system. It still acts naturally even though there is a system over just above its head. Now, here's the European model. I want to show you this. The European model has this pretty much the same as the GFS. And then we're going to look at a couple more factors from the European model. And we're going to also look at the European ensemble model. So this would be for Tuesday morning when you're walking out of the door. The European model taking this a bit further south than the GFS model, and a couple miles can really change this forecast for some people living right on the edge between a lot of snowfall and that rain-snow line. So that's where you could really be impacted by a different storm track. Now, this would be for Tuesday in the afternoon, Tuesday night, and then getting into Wednesday morning. Now I want to kind of show you the wind speed and kind of compare them with your precipitation. So if we go to, this would be for about Wednesday in the middle of the day or so, or a Wednesday at middle of the night, I mean. So for hour 42, and if you're in the yellow, that's basically the lightest shade of green into the yellow, that's blizzard criteria. Over 30 knots, or about 30 knots would be, or above, sustained for 3 hours. That's blizzard criteria, and quarter of a mile visibility. Of course, we can't forecast the visibility, but we can definitely forecast the wind speeds and the snowfall. So here's that time. This is your forecast snowfall map. So here's where your snowfall is right at that moment, and then look at your winds. Your winds would be generally, especially for northwest Iowa, northeast Nebraska, and then into parts of southern central Minnesota, and then into northwest parts of Wisconsin. You could be seeing some blizzard conditions. So really, this area has to worry for some blizzard conditions according to the European model, which has been pretty consistent with this system. Now let's continue on with this run. So Wednesday morning into Wednesday night, seeing you should have arrived at your location by this point. Some people getting in late might, if you're especially over Wisconsin or Minnesota, could still be impacted by this. Heaviest snow over the UP of Michigan by this point, and then it continues out into Canada, and then some snowfall in for Maine, northern New Hampshire, northern Vermont. You could be picking up 6 inches or more over those areas from this system. Now, here's your rainfall from this system, your total precipitation, and you're going to be seeing generally about a quarter of an inch to maybe half an inch of actual liquid precipitation. So if you're in these areas, this is your rainfall. This is actual rainfall. If you're north of this, that's snowfall, but just how much in the form of liquid it is. So generally, if you're where some banding might set up, about 1 inch of rainfall. So nothing that's going to flood roadways or anything, but definitely something to note. Here's your total snowfall from the European model. And it has a good swath of about 6 to 12 inches of snowfall in this area. And then for the Rocky Mountains, has another good area. A lot of these areas seeing snowfall that's on the order of about 6 to 24 inches of snow. So very big snowstorm that's impacting us on Thanksgiving. Now, here, just to pick a random time period during the storm, this is your ground temperature. So if this temperature is below 32 degrees, your snowfall will actually stick to the ground. So generally you want to be on this lightest shade of red. So these areas, I would say, if you're in these areas, this is gonna stick to the ground from this system. So a good area might actually see some sticking snowfall and accumulating snowfall from this system. Now, as we move on to the European ensemble models forecast, it's generally the same, a little bit lighter because it's averaged out over about 30 to 50 models. I don't know the exact number. I believe it's around 50 models, but it's averaged out over all of these, and this is the general average. So if you're seeing 6+ inches, that's pretty certain that you're gonna see some snowfall, and then once you get into the grays, that's where some models are picking up on snowfall from the European ensemble models, but not all of them, so it's very uncertain for these gray areas that you will see snowfall. Now, here's the chances that you see accumulating snowfall over 1 inch. So the best shot would be, I'll just read out this key for you. So about anywhere in your grays to purples, that's about 0 to 30% chance. If you're in the blues, that's about 30 to 45% chance, 45 to 65% chance in those greens and blues, and then 65 to about 80% chance in those yellows and lighter oranges, and then 80 to about 100% chance in those oranges, and then the darkest reds, that's about 100%. So all of these areas, basically certain that you're going to see snowfall from this event. Now, here's your probability of accumulating over 3 inches of snowfall, and you see still pretty good, just a narrow area, a more narrow area than the previous one. Now here's your chance for receiving over 6 inches of snowfall, and still pretty good chance if you are in this area. Still about 75 to 90% chance. Some areas receiving about 90 to 100% chance. Here's your chance for over a foot, and that's really over that Marquette, Michigan area, the northern part of the northern peninsula, or the upper peninsula of Michigan. And then your probability of seeing 2 feet of snowfall or more, very little areas, mainly in the mountainous regions. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy that detailed forecast, I am going to be making another one of these videos tomorrow, giving the same content and kind of going a little bit more in depth as we're closer to this event. So I am going to be continuing to do these videos, and I enjoy making them for you. So I would really appreciate it if you like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video when I upload. Anyways, guys, that was Eli the Weather Guy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.